The Watchtower Society is heading for another Norway court ruling. What's the real story behind the clash between Jehovah's Witnesses and Norway? I've read the letter the Watchtower sent to the Norwegian government, and I have some insights I want to share. I'm going to break down the key points of this controversy and share my thoughts, so stick around. Have you ever told a small child to do something and they said, "No"? You repeat your demand and they stomp their feet in defiance and yell, "No!" repeatedly? Well, that's what the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, the Watchtower Society, has been doing in Norway. In 2021, Norway passed a law that required any religious group applying for subsidies to follow certain rules. The two sides have been in court a few times since then, and will be again early in 2025. They sent an interesting letter to Norway in an attempt to have the case resolved in their favor. They did this by claiming to have changed their policies regarding the practice of shunning. But are they telling the truth, or is this just a smokescreen to deceive the government? Are you wondering why Jehovah's Witnesses are going to court yet again in Norway? It's an ongoing battle going back to 2021, so I want to give you a brief backstory just for context. Grab a notepad and let me give you a simple timeline of what's happened until now. Pause if you need to. In January 2021, Norway updated its Religious Communities Act, which affects how religious groups operate in the country. In February, Jehovah's Witnesses applied for government funding for their members. Then, an exjw notified the Ministry of Children and Families, who we'll call MCF, of the group's practice of shunning members. The MCF passed the concern on to the state administrator, who then asked Jehovah's Witnesses about it. Throughout 2021, the state administrator and Jehovah's Witnesses exchanged questions and answers. January 2022 saw the state administrator deny the Jehovah's Witnesses state funding due to their shunning practice. Jehovah's Witnesses went to court to challenge the decision, but lost. They had to pay around $100,000 in legal fees. They then appealed the ruling. In December, the state administrator decided to remove Jehovah's Witnesses from Norway's religious registry. This decision would strip them of certain rights, like officiating marriages, and of course receiving the cash subsidies. The Jehovah's Witnesses got an injunction to stay registered temporarily. This would continue until the court decided if the state administrator's decision was valid. In April 2023, the Oslo District Court lifted the temporary order and Jehovah's Witnesses lost the appeal. So they were officially deregistered as of January 2023 and lost the right to legally marry couples and to receive subsidies. Then in January 2024, a civil trial took place to decide if Jehovah's Witnesses should get state funding. In March, they lost again and had to pay more legal fees. But like that temperamental small child, they've stomped their feet again and filed yet another appeal. In February 2025, Jehovah's Witnesses will have another trial to challenge the previous decision. In anticipation of the trial, Jehovah's Witnesses wrote this letter claiming to have made changes. Let's explore it section by section and see if they're being honest or not. The government of Norway removed the registration of Jehovah's Witnesses due to their practice of shunning. Shunning is the penalty for those expelled from the organization. It is known as disfellowshipping, but Watchtower now politely calls it being removed. The letter makes a bold statement right in the first paragraph to make it appear there's been a change. It says, We would like to inform you about a recent worldwide adjustment in our religious practice in this area. The letter states that these changes were made public in the August 2024 Watchtower Study Edition. This is not the same edition the public gets. The letter then provides a bullet point list with 5 supposed changes in Watchtower policies, but upon further review, 3 of the 5 are merely repeating current Watchtower policies. There's nothing new there. The 4th one isn't really a change at all. It merely suggests that baptized minors won't be disfellowshipped as often as in the past. Since Norway considers disfellowshipping and the required shunning of a minor as abuse, well, basically it's against the law. So, how generous of Watchtower to tell Norway that they don't plan on breaking the law as often. So what exactly is the big change in policy that justifies Norway granting registration and giving Watchtower subsidies? Well, rank and file members can now invite disfellowshipped members to a meeting and greet them if they show up. But there is a sneaky little caveat which betrays Watchtower's deception. What would you say if I could show you how Watchtower is being deceitful using their own words? In the letter Watchtower sent to Norway, they cite the August 2024 Study Edition Watchtower article. One paragraph in particular stood out to me. Does what we have considered mean that we would completely ignore a person who has been removed from the congregation? Not necessarily. Certainly, we would not socialize with him, but Christians can use their Bible-trained conscience in deciding whether to invite a person who was removed from the congregation, perhaps a relative or someone they were close to previously, to attend a congregation meeting. What if he attends? Well, in the past, we would not greet such a person. Here again, each Christian needs to use his Bible-trained conscience in this matter. Some may feel comfortable with greeting or welcoming the person to the meeting. However, we would not have an extended conversation or socialize with the individual. On the surface, that sounds like a softening of the shunning stance, although a very minor one. But this is very deceptive. It comes down to one simple phrase: Bible-trained conscience. What is a Bible-trained conscience? Well, it's a conscience based on the guidance from the Scriptures. And Watchtower so graciously cites verses in the Watchtower article and in the letter to Norway. The verses are 1 Corinthians 5:11 through 13. But now I am writing you to stop keeping company with anyone called a brother who is sexually immoral, or a greedy person, or an idolater, or a reviler, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, not even eating with such a man. For what do I have to do with judging those outside? Do you not judge those inside, while God judges those outside? Remove the wicked person from among yourselves. Watchtower, when quoting this in publications, merely quote-mines the passage and says, "Remove the wicked person from among yourselves." In fact, they do that exact thing earlier in this article. Now here's where things take an interesting turn. If you look at this passage in the New World Translation, you will see a notation. This tells you other verses that correspond with this verse, providing you with context so you understand. What are the suggested verses for 1 Corinthians 5:13? Well, Deuteronomy 22:21. They should bring the girl out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of her city should stone her to death, because she has committed a disgraceful act in Israel by committing sexual immorality in the house of her father. So you must remove what is bad from your midst. You must remove what is bad from your midst. So stone her to death. The next is just a couple verses later in verse 24. You should bring them both out to the gate of that city and stone them to death. The girl because she did not scream in the city, and the man because he humiliated the wife of his fellow man. So you must remove what is evil from your midst. You must remove what is evil from your midst, so stone them to death. Finally, in Deuteronomy 24:7, we read, if someone is found to have kidnapped one of his Israelite brothers, and he has mistreated him and sold him, the kidnapper must die. You should remove what is bad from your midst. You should remove what is bad from your midst, so the kidnapper must die. So tell me, what exactly is Watchtower implying when they say, remove the wicked person from among yourselves? The Bible-trained conscience tells you to act as if that person is dead. In other words, there are no changes in Watchtower policy. They're gaslighting Jehovah's Witnesses to comply. Norway and all Jehovah's Witnesses are being lied to. But this isn't the first time Watchtower has lied about softening their stance. What other example do we have of Watchtower lying to a government to get their own way? In 1994, Bulgaria withdrew the registration of several religions, including Jehovah's Witnesses. Naturally, Watchtower took the case to court. In 1998, a compromise was apparently reached. Bulgaria would allow Jehovah's Witnesses to work in civilian jobs in lieu of military service. Jehovah's Witnesses agreed not to punish those who accepted blood transfusions. This policy is considered illegal in many countries because it kills in excess of 1,000 JWs every year. But what Watchtower did here was a deceptive illusion. It's true that those accepting blood transfusions are no longer disfellowshipped, but according to the Shepherd the Flock of God book, the Elder's Manual, there are still consequences. Chapter 18, paragraph 3 of the book says, if someone willingly accepts a blood transfusion, perhaps because of being under extreme pressure, a committee, not judicial, should obtain the facts and determine the individual's attitude. So if a JW accepts a transfusion, there will be a meeting with an elders committee to determine repentance. If the person is repentant, the book says the following. If he is repentant, the committee would provide spiritual assistance in the spirit of Galatians 6:1 and Jude 22:23. Since he is spiritually weak, he would not qualify for special privileges for a period of time. But if the person is repentant, but the elders feel the choice was avoidable, then this could happen. In some cases, it may also be necessary to remove other privileges, such as commenting at congregation meetings and presenting student assignments on the midweek meeting. Depending on the circumstances, the committee may also need to arrange for an announcement to the congregation at a midweek meeting. The elders have handled the matter with having to do with name of the person. You will be glad to know that spiritual shepherds are endeavoring to render assistance. But what if the elders deem the person unrepentant? The book says this. On the other hand, if the elders on the committee determine that he is unrepentant, they should announce his disassociation. What exactly is disassociation? Well, it's identical to a disfellowshipping with one important difference. It can't be appealed. In fact, the announcement to the congregation, whether you're disfellowshipped or disassociated, is identical. Name of the person is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The end result is the same. Disassociated persons are treated the same as disfellowshipped persons. In short, they are shunned, treated as if they were dead, according to their Bible-trained consciences. So what Jehovah's Witnesses are doing is lying to these governments. Why? Money, pure and simple. I've shown you evidence of their lies. Show me evidence it's not about the money. I bet you can't.